name's Chase. I'm a photographer and a filmmaker, and I cut my teeth in this industry for more than a decade. I still have a foot in it, and I adore it very, very much. One of the things that I applaud Derek and the team here for doing is starting to look beyond just the ski industry for solutions to some of the problems that exist, and then the ability to take what this industry does as well or better than anyone or any industry in the world, which is create great stuff and put it out in the world, to sort of toot that horn. So I would love to introduce the panelists, but I think it's better for them to introduce themselves. And if you guys just take maybe a 10-second one, and I'll try and extract all the rest of the goodness of the folks that are on the stage. It's a very esteemed panel here today. And please start it off down there for me, if you would.
Hi, everyone. Is this mic working? Yeah. You guys can hear. Nick Hamilton, Transworld Snowboarding. I'm the content director.
My name's Danny Grant. I'm from The Orchard. We are a content partner to deliver films to digital places like iTunes, Xbox, Netflix, places like that.
Hey, I'm Brendan Gahan. I'm the director of social media at Mechanism. We're an ad agency. We're actually 2011 Small Ad Agency of the Year, and we're really well known for our online content and distribution.
Hello, everybody. I'm Greg Jacobs. I lead all distribution for Red Bull Media House North America.
So, as you can see, a very esteemed panel, and so the title of the panel is content distribution. If I'm in the wrong panel, somebody let me know. There are a couple of things that I think are important to kick off with. One, not to focus on you specifically, but Nick, your title has content in the name of it, and how does that is not a title that you hear a lot of these days. Because the first thing we do before we distribute something is we have to create something. So talk to me about the old you versus the new you in the editorial world.
Okay, so I work at Transworld Snowboarding. Most of you are probably familiar with the magazine, maybe website. We also have a lot of other channels, editorial, events, digital, iPad, movies. So I came from the photography background. I worked at Transworld in the office for 10 years as the photo editor, photo video director. This year, content director is a new title within our parent company. It was kind of one of the first magazines to kind of shift roles with the lead. Traditionally, as an editor-in-chief is in charge of the magazine, and usually the magazine has the kind of first focus, and then all the digital channels, everything else, are a little bit after. And Transworld Snowboarding, we started where everything's important to us, and the magazine's one of our channels, but all of our channels are important. So that's why I'm kind of not a traditional editor-in-chief, and thus we kind of created a new title that kind of represented all of our channels. And
yeah, the shift is what I think is important, that there's someone who's thinking about content not in any one particular vertical necessarily, that even the content within a company is distributed content across a lot of channels. And then I think let's talk for a second, because there's a couple different ends of the spectrum here. Greg, you're talking about the super high-end, you're distributing content right this moment to Discovery,
yes.
Correct? And then, Brendan, you're probably distributing content right now to like iJustine via YouTube for a video targeted at 13-year-old girls. So, and the irony is that they are both incredibly valuable, but they're very different.
Yeah,
so you guys come from different ends of the spectrum as well. So talk to me a little bit about what's going on right now with Red Bull and the fact that you have to have this great content before you put it anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a couple of things. You have to first have a Rolodex to get to the right players and get to them credibly, and then all about the content. If you look, I don't want to go too much down a diatribe, but if you're going to pitch television to a network and you want them to commission a television series from you, they always say the two cardinal rules, sins in selling television: never put the business plan in front of the creative. However, in other types of content, put the business plan in front of the creative. Know what your distribution model might be. Know what your distribution plan would be. Have that in place. You'll be a lot more enticing to a potential partner or sponsor if you already say it's going to go XYZ. Here's my forecasted rev that I can drive from this property. And so that's one way to look at it. On television, they always say, go with the creative is always going to work, and then we'll bolt on the business plan. So that's an interesting kind of way to look at it. But you got to be cognizant of the business mindset on everything that you do. For Red Bull, we come into it, and it's actually a challenging marketplace for us. If you go into whomever it might be, whether it's a network or whether it's AMC theaters, the first thing they're going to say to me is, Okay, are you going to support this with a spend? No, I'm not going to support this with a spend. We're going to reverse that, and we're going to find inbound revenue for us, but we're going to provide you compelling content, and we are going to drive an audience and an authentic audience in your direction. And so that's kind of the sales pitch that you have to try to do to keep, to balance the playing field, if you will.
And talk to me about, Brendan, how that is very different, it seems to me, than what it is that you do.
Yeah, totally. So we kind of started from the opposite end of the spectrum. Mechanism was kind of founded on the idea of the 30-second TV spot was going to die. And so that was like 2001, solely focused on web content. And we've evolved since then, but essentially, our bread and butter and what we're really well known for is, creating great web content and then understanding the distribution of that. And oftentimes that involves kind of, since we're working for brands, cultivating and creating an audience through online influencers. So we'll kind of cherry pick, who's relevant to our target audience, who's going to make sense for the brand, and then kind of onboard them and get them in on the ground floor of this content and campaign. And getting them involved and invested early on kind of lends credibility when we're going out and we're launching something, and then they act as evangelists on our behalf.
Got it. And then, Danny, this is going to be a little bit different for you still. So go a little bit deeper on what it is that you do. And are you thinking more in terms of you representing brands or individuals or both? And how do you see the content that you push out all the way through iTunes and beyond?
Well, it's a little different because the content is not like traditional Hollywood movies. It's generated, for enjoyment. This niche that we're all in, and the niche that we've focused on, that I've focused on at the Orchard, is this action sports content, premium content, feature length. All these films are here because a sponsor wants to communicate a image or show off the new jacket or the boards, or that's why the films exist. So they kind of have a little different twist in where they go and who buys them. So as far as what Greg touched on there too, as filmmakers and content producers of feature length content like this, it's important to have your distribution line kind of laid out, because when you're going there with your hand out to ask for a check for them to make the film, you want to communicate. It's a marketing spend for them, so they want the eyeballs, they want the impressions. Who's going to find this film? And we work kind of more as partners rather than gatekeepers, where we're facilitating this community to iTunes, Xbox, PlayStation, Amazon, Hulu, like all these avenues that really cast a huge net globally in a digital landscape that's really evolving. So when the producer or brand says, where are people going to discover my movie? Well, this is where it's going to go, and I have this distribution locked in. So it's kind of the service that the Orchard provides, and I call it more of a partnership, because we have a huge vested interest in your film actually getting out there, selling, or getting the eyeballs that the sponsor wants.
Can I reduce your thing to a soundbite for just a second?
Sure.
Build it with the end in mind. Would you agree with that?
Exactly.
So the content, and that's a decipherable nugget that these folks can walk away with. And I see it as a huge problem for creatives, being that that's the line of work that I'm in. And it took me a long time to figure out that I could build this great three-legged monster in my room and then push it out in the hallway and say, look at everybody, isn't it great? And then there's no one to sort of consume it. I don't know where it's going to go. And
I have calls and emails every day from brands and independent filmmakers. They're like, this is what I did. What should I do? Where if we did it the other way, this is what I want to do. I'm going to do 9 webisodes that are going to lead up into a feature, and this is where it's going to go, and this is the street date, and we set a work back schedule. It's much easier than, I got this thing, it's done. What should we do?
Right. Yeah. Great. So I'm going to pause for a second. So the idea is we're going to talk for, what's our timeline here? Someone who's in charge of something, tell me how long we're going to be. I think it's an hour, and I think we could talk for 45 minutes. The hope is that at the a 45-minute mark, we're just going to field questions, because I know, as a person who sat in the audience a lot in these things, that you have burning questions. One of the things a word that has been recurring here is audience and sort of end user and where is it going. So just a quick poll or maybe a summary, a couple hands in the air would help me. who's in the audience, and because I really want this to be valuable. I want you to be able to take away something that you actually give a shit about. And if you leave out here like, oh, that was a bunch of people just going, wah, then we will have failed. So in order for us to deliver the most value, raise your hand if you are, like, what kind of stuff do you do? Put your hand in the air and tell me something about someone in the audience. Quickly, please. Yep, you, what do you do?
Sports marketing and video production.
Okay, so for big films, for people, for brands, for individuals?
Action sports and rugby, and work with most of the partners on the panel right now.
Got it, okay, somebody else. I want to know who's in the audience. Yeah, go ahead, Brad.
Content creation and distribution to an audience first, and aggregation of an audience the second piece.
Got it. And you got websites primarily, and online media and print media? Okay. Who else? Anybody that's not in those two camps? There are people from here from Gatorade and from Coke and from all kinds of, yeah, go ahead. Nike, I've heard of that company before. Nike Action Sports, yeah. Got it. Snowboard. So individuals trying to get their stuff into perhaps a distribution channel. There's companies. Is there anybody who's not in one of those camps we've heard from? Yes. Winter Sports on Google Plus. Excellent. I'm on Google Plus. I like Google Plus. So is Robert Scoble right here. Okay. Anybody who's not in those camps? Yeah. This is really helpful. I don't know if this is helpful for you guys, but yeah. Got it. So, but yeah, this is good. Keep going. Who else?
Hardware and software, actually, with Apple.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of terabytes of data that need to get out there, so we'll talk to you later. Okay, so one of the we had a little quick phone call before this, day before yesterday, I think it was, and one of the things that was on this call that Greg brought up was really, really interesting. And you talked, Greg, about the open opportunities, but you need to pay attention to a couple. I think you had the 7 must-haves, or and there should be some sort of rules that guide this thinking about the end in mind. So talk to me about the 7. If you don't need to memorize them, I wrote them down.
No, because I forget them too. I try to do it in like a little acronym. I was bored one day on a plane, and I said we have to figure out distribution is not a black art. We're not saving patience. We're getting content seen, and we're making money at it. And if you do those two things, you'll figure it out. So, for those of you that are producers in the audience, the big worry you have is your only asset outside your creative ability is your rights. And how do you retain those rights? It's a really challenging marketplace to retain your rights. So as you go into a negotiation with any type of distribution deal, it's very simple. I think there's 7 key elements. I call it TTPFOC, parenthetical E. So threw that in there.
A to the K.
So it's real sad. I'm not going to, 2 more minutes and I'll walk you through it. Term, territory, platform, format, ownership, compensation, and exclusivity. So how are you getting paid? Compensation? Who in the hell owns it? Where is it going to go? How long is it going to go there for? And what format is it going to be on? If you have those 7 key elements to a distribution deal, you will not get taken advantage of. So anytime a contract crosses your desk, look for those 7 key elements, think them through. There's not much more than that you have to worry about. If you know where it's going, how you're getting paid for it, who has the rights to it, what format it's on, and who owns it, you're going to be okay and be able to protect yourself. You walk into a television network client, they're going to say, we'll be happy to, we'd love to do this deal. We're going to own all rights in perpetuity worldwide for, perpetuity is forever. But anyway, so right there, they took all your rights away. And you didn't even know. They didn't even validate your parking, and they took all your rights away. So be cognizant of that and think it through, because you can be as smart in the room as anybody else is. We're all dealing off the same piece of paper, and we're all getting the content out there and trying to make the best deal possible.
And as for the individual content creators that are in the room, if you're not able to answer your desired output at the end, how you would play each one of those things, like what's the term? What's your rights? Are you willing to give it away? Is it a message that you're trying to set free, or is it something you're trying to monetize and have money going this way? Do you want to own it? Do you want to be able to control it after its first run? Do you want to be able to have this in your legacy, or are you willing to just let it go out there? So I think your diagram is great. There's one you didn't talk about, which is exclusivity.
Yeah.
And I think
exclusivity has a value to it.
It does.
So you have to look at it and say, where do you want to weave that into the deal? I always will start with non-exclusive in any deal that I can possibly do. I want to be able to window those rights out to whomever I want to window those rights out to. But a client may say exclusivity is important to them. Well, that comes at a premium. And so those are the types of things. You also want to sandbag certain rights and use them and offer them in like a poker table to up the money or pull back on the money or pull back on certain rights. And I'll give you co-ownership, but I'm going to retain X. And so it's a chess game to play. But if you know the guardrails of those 7 key elements, you can play that chess game as good as anybody else in the marketplace. And it shows that you're empowered when you walk into a room to negotiate a deal.
Beautiful. So I've heard a bunch of different media types. We've heard print media, we've heard online media, we've talked about broadcast, and I'm sure some of the brands that raise their hands, you're probably doing, Oakley, you're doing a handful of different things. You got something in broadcast, something in online, something in print. One of the things that I think is a sort of unanswered, what's in the black box question is virality. Because everyone wants their content distributed and they don't want to do any work. Am I right? Put your hands in the air just for a second. If you want your shit to go viral, you don't have to do any work. Everyone who didn't raise their hand is hungover. So every hand in the room was raised, as far as I saw it. So that is really a specialty of mechanisms. And is it a formula?
I think there's like principles, I'll use an example. So one of our probably most viral videos is like, I think it has 26 million views, 1.7 million shares. It's like top 20 most viewed viral ads of all time. And
it's an ad.
Yeah, it's an ad. It's called Ape with AK-47.
Ape with an AK-47.
But that was for Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Principle number 1, give it a really freaky name.
It's good. But I think ultimately it's like there's 2 parallel paths you need to kind of keep in mind. There's like the people, and then there's the platforms, and you need to understand both sides of them. And so on the people side, basically, we identified like something like 50 online influencers, and before even a single piece of content had ever been produced. We flew them all to LA. They got behind the scenes of the upcoming movie, the marketing campaign. They got to do meet and greets with the director, writers, producers of Rise of the Planet of the Apes. So they were like stoked. And then we said, these are all the elements we're rolling out. We want you guys to like rally behind this. And luckily we'd kind of cultivated the right group, and we made sure that this was content that their audience would find relevant and that they would really get behind. So when that video goes live, essentially, we've got this built-in base, this distribution base, but then parallel to that, we make sure that we're understanding the platforms. Like on YouTube, for example, there's 11 different categories you can upload to. The browse page, which is more or less the default page, the content's getting refreshed there. The top, the most popular content in each of those categories is getting refreshed there every 48 hours. So like we kind of did the math and reverse engineered. How long is what kind of viewership and engagement do we need to end up here so that we get kind of this massive earned media platform?
Is that called building it with the end in mind again?
Exactly, okay. Yeah. I mean, we reverse engineered everything. So get the right people and understand where on different platforms you want to be, and then reverse engineer like what's it going to take to get there, and then execute flawlessly. And if the content's good, it'll travel. Sometimes it doesn't, but I think if you've got these right elements in place, it'll do well.
Quick message for the content creators out there in the audience: if you build something and then you wash your hands, you say, "Oh shit, I'm done here. This is good. This thing's just going to go." You're completely mistaken. I think it's sort of like when you climb a mountain, you're only halfway there when you're at the top. And the rest of that work is getting back down. Or in this world, that's really when the super hard work, the work that's probably not intuitive to content creators, begins. And if you did start with a sort of a plan and then it's just a continuation of the plan and you don't have to sort of reignite yourself, because most people, they give so much time and energy, do they not, to that creative process, and then there's nothing left in reserve. So how do you guys think at Orchard, how do you guys think about virality, and are you looking for it as distribution partners, Are you looking for things that have that certain je ne sais quoi?
Not necessarily.
That's good. That's French.
Yeah.
Bonjour.
Not necessarily. I mean, you start with what is the objective, of the content. Is it short form and you want as many eyeballs to see it, or is it premium and you want it to hold a value and it's $12.99 in HD on iTunes, something like that. So, you have the meter between an independent filmmaker that needs the money and you have a brand movie that just wants the eyeballs. So there's a lot of different ways to scale that, and right now everybody's kind of in the middle, like, I want the most eyeballs and the most money. It's difficult to do. As far as, viral, what I work with is a lot of trailers that go viral, and you'll see, 100,000 clicks in a week or something. Yeah, that's a good sign that this is going to be some premium content that kids are going to enjoy, and it's kind of not something I look at as far as the free.
No, I love that, and I think you might have a different opinion, Nick. I'm going to seed your thought here and see if I can mind control you from this far away. That you guys are really interested about being core. Is that and like sort of the virality of something? It's you're talking to the tip of the pyramid, and then the virality really happens from the tip of the pyramid down.
For sure.
Put that in your own words for me.
So for us with snowboarding, I mean, and Transworld has multiple titles. So we have motocross, skateboarding, surf, snowboarding. I just work on snowboarding. Each one is really dedicated to their audience and really understands their own audience. I think what these guys do is great. Like Red Bull Media House, Red Bull YouTube channel, getting those millions of views on videos is incredible. They have a huge following. For us, we're not looking straight off the bat to reach that many people. It's just not really realistic. So we're going for the kind of, we call it the tier one, most core audience, the influencers in the sports. So in snowboarding, it's the people that are in the know, they influence their friends at school or whatever it be. We're looking to target them first. So our channels are kind of focused where they can find something, feel like they're part of our community that only they are getting. And then after that initial window, we usually do 24 to 48 hours. After that, we kind of roll it out to the larger kind of, for lack of a better term, less core kind of audience.
Syndicate it beyond the core.
Yeah, because the audience grows, but they're not as engaged. They don't, they might not care as much. And, for us, like, for snowboarding videos, I saw a video last year. There was a video of a crow on a rooftop snowboarding on this like piece of like cardboard or something. Got millions of views. But for a core snowboarding video, 40, 50,000 views in the first week's really good. And that's, it's reaching a different audience. It's people that care. I think for the brands, it translates to, something that is measurable for them. It's their audience, it's their customers.
If we go back to the end of mind, you want depth of engagement at the top, and then everything else sort of takes care of itself. So one of the things that I've heard throughout everything that all of you have said is the word people, the word relationships, the word influencers, the word individuals. To me, that seems like a theme that's very, very important to everybody on the stage. Which of you all want to comment on that? Because I think this is probably why the people are in the room listening, because they want to know about. It's a very personal thing, distribution, and it's not a box that's checked, and it's not a wire transfer that happens, because that doesn't mean shit, right? It's people that actually move the content. So throw it out there. Someone jump on it.
I'll take a crack at it. I mean, I know for us it's really important. I think, with social media, people are media networks, and with that comes not just the ability to leverage that distribution, but also the credibility. And I think those two working together, at least for us, has been incredibly valuable and something we just focus a ton of our time and resources towards.
Got it. So let me interrupt for just a second. Can you disclose roughly what your audience is on the Transworld side of things?
So our audience are, I think we talked about on the call the other day, our most core audience is probably our print subscribers.
Okay.
That's kind of the smallest group. We have 115,000 print subscribers.
Okay.
It's a little funny comparing print with digital, because digital's eyeballs, and magazines, people that actually pay for the magazine.
Right.
So there's pass-along rate, and I see a lot of magazines I didn't necessarily pay for, so they're not in any kind of metric. So that's kind of the weird thing with print. But That's probably our smallest audience, and then from there it grows. The website's more global, even the iPads.
Sure.
Give
me a ballpark total audience. If you said I can
How many
get this
people
out
does
to-
Transworld Snowboarding reach?
Yeah, just draw a circle around it, and I'm not going to hold you to it.
2 million.
2 million.
Yeah.
Just the point needs to be made just for a second here. So Scoble, stop answering your email. How many people have I said? What's the Scoble audience?
2.5 million on Google Plus, 391,000 on Facebook.
More precise, please. No. No. This okay. So my point is that 2 million. Company, corporation, a lot of people, individual.
Yeah, but they pay him to get the magazine.
Yeah, he didn't get paid, is what he said.
I don't have 2 million paid.
But the point that I'm trying to make, and I think it slipped under Brennan's breath, is that whether it's it's relationships with kind of people or companies and everyone's a media channel. You said that really quietly and really quickly, but that to me is something that if I was sitting out there and wasn't paid to think about this shit for a living, would go, oh wow. And the fact that individuals for the first time have scalable distribution, I think is really interesting. And so if I send something to Transworld and I send something to Robert, depending on the sort of type of content, we might be able to get a bigger hit off an individual than off a company. So being on the front page of CNN is not as effective as being on X and Y and Z. So when you're thinking about distribution, whether distributing news or in this case action sports content, I think that's a really, really important consideration. And now I want to hear from you on that one, because the idea that individuals are very, very important to Red Bull. Do you guys look at them as distribution channels? Or when you're talking about individuals, do you have great individual relationships within the network of media in a more traditional sense that you distribute on?
A great question. Clearly, it has to be both. We have a strong industry. One of our main goals when we launched Media House in January of 11 here in the U.S. or North America was industry credibility. That was key. If you don't have that, how are you going to move through the marketplace? And as a brand, one of the first brands to come in and try to really push at it, that was really important to us. And so you have to have the industry credibility. You have to be able to get the certain right level people. I always say, don't take no from somebody who can't say yes. So you got to have the right angle to get into the people. You got to don't take no from somebody who can't say yes. There's a lot of people that say no, they don't even have the power to say yes. They can't say yes. They're not high enough in the food chain in a company to be able to say yes. So also know who you're wasting your energy talking to, get to the right person. But that aside, then also our audience. Our audience is huge to move a product through or to authenticate something that we put out in the marketplace. The other exciting thing is guys, this has got to be one of the coolest times to be in this business. This is like a media renaissance going on right now. All these different channels. I mean, I put stuff up on YouTube and I test it. I see how it does. I see what kind of audience I get. I use it as simply focus groups. And then I pull that data back down and I package it in. I take it to a linear play, or I take it to a theatrical play, or I take it to wherever it might be, an SVOD play. Because we have so many different outlets right now, anybody can post stuff up on YouTube and see if it starts to get an audience. And you know what resonates. It's focus groups right there. It doesn't cost you a dime. So it's fascinating. And so those focus groups and those the individuals who authenticate our programming helps me tremendously when I'm in a board meeting and I'm being a Pied Piper about why they should spend, 8 figures with us on something. This is why, guys, because it does resonate. And so you have to have both. You have to have industry credibility and access to the industry, but you also have to have know that if you put the right content out there, a fan base will trigger for you, and they will evangelize your content.
You wanted to say something, I think, Brendan. You were.
Well, no, I totally agree. I mean, I think relationships are everything. I mean, and we've invested a lot in it, and taking a step further, it's also something that can't be forced. And we were talking about people kind of investing a lot of time in creating their content, and then afterwards, kind of being like, what do I do with it? I think you always have to be building and cultivating relationships and providing value for people, so that when you need to ask for a favor, it's not give me. It's like, hey, let's all help each other out. It's a community, and participating and constantly contributing and giving back is a big part of that.
I heard community and contribution, giving back. All these things I think are also if you're not in this business or you're on the outside of this business and you want in, or you have a lack of understanding, you're trying to develop it, those are absolutely key components. And the way, how do you build relationships, or actual human relationships? You cannot force this. It has to happen organically. You have to know this person, or it has to be a warm introduction. And I think that probably everybody on the couch can say that if they got something from someone who they didn't know, the trust is down. And if you get something from someone that you do know, the trust is up. Do you get curated content, Danny? I mean, do you have eyes out there, and is that is the relationship a mission critical thing for you?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the relationship with the filmmaker and the brands is everything, and as well as providing the service. And I think that, you know, there's three wheels in the whole scheme. It's production, marketing, and distribution. And I think, you know, Media House would be probably the only studio that kind of covers the whole thing. I mean, we have an agreement with Media House to distribute their content, but when you look at an indie filmmaker, you know, they're making the movie. They probably have a marketing partner, probably a media outlet, and use somebody like myself for the distribution, and then the wheel turns to garner eyeballs or generate revenue.
Got it. Relationships, they important?
For sure. And I think, you know, we touched upon it, being associated with a credible brand is a huge part as well. I mean, that's what when we talk about media partnerships. I mean, we partner with a lot of the movie makers, and we only want to partner with the ones we know are going to do a great product. And I think we're all pretty excited to see Jeremy and the TGR guys in the house with Further tonight. Stoked on that. See that on the big screen. But that's the example of a partnership where we know that, you know, those guys are doing something awesome. We want to partner with them, and that's kind of how we kind of fuel off each other.
All right, so let's move on to the loaded word authenticity, because everybody in this room reeks of it. You've all got your noses in the air. It's very important to you. You put authenticity on under your arms every morning. You do, because if it wasn't a core part of what you're doing, you probably aren't here. Right? The reason you're here is because you believe enough in something you give a shit about something enough to come and spend time around the people that are going to be able to help you and do what you do. I think authenticity, the authenticity with the lowercase a, just the word, is a bullshit word that gets kicked around. But authenticity with the capital A, and I think Red Bull, you have been definitive as a brand in the last decade for standing for something like that. How important is that to you before you even think about, because again, in order to distribute something, you have to make something of value that people are going to watch. You test it, on YouTube, you A/B it, but talk about the A word, not that A word, the other A word.
Critical. The moment we lose that, we've sold ourselves out. I'm all about revenue. I mean, I got a tattoo, tramp stamp that says revenue right here on my back. So
come on, that's pretty good.
I'm all about it. I mean, that's
committed.
That's key. But you have to be. But if I always look at the lens, I look at the lens of authentic, and I got really good people that work with me. A gentleman named Scott Bradfield, who you may or may not know, oversees our production side. He doesn't go out and make something unless I know I can sell it, and so we have a real good relationship that way. But whatever he makes is also, he's really authentic. He's just himself as core. He's a mountain biker, and so I trust his true north compass as to what he wants to go do, or what, Kurt Morgan's a guy that did a project called Art of Flight, and Kurt understands it. So if you have that authenticity and it's right and it speaks to it, I can take it out and I can generate money, but it's got to be authentic first. So don't ever lose sight of that.
So your world, Brendan, is a little different, because authenticity, like hovering cat video authenticity, like, are you being authentic to the cat loving audience of the internet? Or are you being authentic to the people whose goal it is to spread a message, whatever that message is? Like, where does authenticity plug into sort of viral? Because Ape with an AK-47, when you know that it's about marketing Planet of the Apes, it starts to click for you. You go, oh, I get it. But if you don't know that, you might get called out on, like, Ape grabbing AK-47, bad, this is going to be a crazy-ass video, I'm going to watch it. Where does authenticity fit in your program? And when I say your program, it's sort of like peer-to-peer, like you're handing it to a YouTube person, and then they're pushing it out to all the people that pay attention to their audience. Is that important?
Absolutely. I think, and we're working with a number of different brands. So I think when we're beginning a partnership and planning a campaign, and it's going to involve social media and online influencers, we really try and identify, who's appropriate, who's already an evangelist for the brand. And then kind of get them in on the ground floor, like provide them exclusives, get them really excited, cater to them and their needs, and make sure that it's a great partnership. And I think that's where the authenticity comes in. Because if we just, got somebody who is, had a massive audience but wasn't relevant to the content or the brand, then that authenticity disappears. So I think it's all about kind of curating who's relevant, getting them genuinely excited about it and involved in the campaign. And then it's authentic. I mean, it's still branded and it's a campaign, but at least it's relevant.
Got it. So I've been sort of drilling each one of you guys at various different times here. And what am I not asking that you think is really important for this audience, so that when they leave this room in 30 minutes, 20 minutes, that they actually have something to walk away with? So what am I missing? Now's your chance.
Should we ask them?
I want to ask you guys before, because I want to give you an opportunity to call me out. Like, what am I missing? And there's certainly things that we haven't talked about that are in your agenda for what it is that either you want to get off your plate or you want them to know.
I think what Greg said, the end in mind, that's really the key thing that seems to be. I've been doing this for 12 years and started selling VHS tapes when that's what it was, and it's been the reoccurring theme. It's done. What do we do? If it just thought about it and penciled it out, put it on a whiteboard, what do we want to exactly do? What's the goal? I think that's a real big takeaway.
Got it.
Yeah, I think we focused a lot on people as media networks. I think it's important to also keep in mind as you're planning towards your end goal, how do all these different platforms work? And really putting a lot of time and strategy into how do I launch this so that I get in front of the right people at the right time. Because you can get the right people, but if you don't have it all configured just right, it can kind of just fall flat. And it's really critical to, I think, study, where are these people actually going to be looking, and then, like when you launch something, if you are in front of a person, the 5 sites they visit every day, just when your content is launching, that's probably enough for it to just kind of take off, and they feel like there's a lot of momentum behind it. So I think it's a lot of time and research and identifying like how to launch and where to launch it as well.
Do you guys think about that, Greg?
Yeah, I think there's two things to look at. Just also the generation in which you're focused on. You look at the millennials; it's one way to speak to them. If you look at Z Gen, and it's a great example that that one of my clients at Spike Television said, we studied. He says we study Z Gen like crazy. Find us. Z Gen says find us. Read my feeds. Find me through my feeds. So every generation you're looking at, whomever you want, if you want to be authentic, and who you're speaking to, how do they consume media? It sounds so simple, but it's actually relatively complex. So think that through, and then again, I always say bolt the business model on in front. If you go to a sponsor and you're asking for $450,000 to produce your film, because it's the raddest film that's ever been done on whatever subject, great. But come back to them with a 30% ROI in a 2-year window. Come back to them with, guys, I'll help you. We'll find, you guys will get visibility. We'll work together, but I'm also going to help you refinance what it is that you spent. So provide me $450. I'm going to bring you back a $120 or whatever and change, and let's see if we can do this together. Incentivize your partner to get into it with you and to mitigate their financial risk a little bit as well. Then look at every component. I mean, the reason that we're in business with Danny is he's got relationships that I don't have, and so it works perfectly. So also look at, okay, I'm going to window it into SVOD. I'm going to window it into linear. I'm going to hold back FVOD for my linear play. I'm going to window it theatrical and packaged media, but for a shorter window.
See him after for translation.
Look at every single window and exploit the hell out of each one the best you can. And you can take one property, it can have a 5-year life, and you can make money. It's almost an annuity if you're smart about what it is. Again, one of the great things about where we are is Google doesn't talk back. If you don't know, Google it. No one knows you did. So Google SVOD, okay? Google how to build a structure. So I always tell my team, Melissa's on my team, all the time, hey, if you don't know something, just figure it out. take the time to understand it, you can be as smart as anybody else in the business, you know? And so, and it's so wonderful right now to have so many different platforms in which to take one asset and monetize it in a 360-degree platform.
You got to sink the time into the same amount of time you sink into making the thing beautiful. You have to sink that amount of time into getting it out there. You have to understand each of those channels, or pay for someone who understands those channels really well, and that's mission critical, eh? Mm-hmm. Okay,
yep.
So anyone else got a soapbox they want to be on for a second? Now's your chance.
I might have one more thing to add.
No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I was thinking about it a little bit more. You know, again, kind of what I was touched upon before on the views. I think there's a lot of, you know, independent filmmakers in here that deal in action sports, and I think important thing is not really to get discouraged with the eyeball kind of like chase that's been going on the last couple of years. I mean, it totally makes sense for ad campaigns and virality and, you know, some of the Red Bull projects, but, you know, I don't think the goal is always necessarily to get millions of views on what you know, quality over quantity. Absolutely. And that's kind of what we focus on. And something that I just heard the other day at YouTube was they actually changed their algorithm that takes into consideration length of viewing and not just views. And that's like a current shift. And I feel like that speaks a lot to quality of content, engaging with your audience, and not just chasing that view counter.
Yeah.
You know, and especially if you're putting out ski, snowboard video or something, it's like you might get 10,000 views, and they might be all really good, credible views through your own channels, and you should be stoked. You know, if it's good audience.
There's an erosion of the CPM mentality.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's really what you're giving is access and insight into an audience that you couldn't otherwise have, rather than numbers, because the people who come actually matter. Again, it does go down to people. Who are you talking to? Who's your audience? Who are your peers? Who are your partners? All that stuff's critical. All right, I love you guys, but now this is my favorite part, is where we get to actually try and deliver like insane value in the next 15 minutes. I know you're all probably hungry because you got up late, were hungover, you didn't get breakfast, so lunch is soon. But talk to me about what it is that you want to know. With hands in the air to start firing some questions. Yes, please, blonde hair.
Just to follow up on what Nick was saying.
Oh, it's a comment, is it?
Well, no,
I'm just kidding. Please, I'm just kidding.
Sorry. How are some other ways that you measure that engagement and that, or like you were saying, length of viewership? What are some other ways that you measure the engagement, the quality of the audience versus the eyeball?
I think on that, I would say is a genuine kind of audience shares. I mean, it's a little bit the same principle as virality, but sometimes I see a video might have, you know, a shit ton of views, but I know it has some huge brands behind it, pushing it out to their network, almost forcing it. So sometimes you might put a video out, and you can just tell by the comments and, you know, seeing them, looking at the hashtag for that video, and when people genuinely just telling their friends this is cool, and there's no big branding involved, there's no like kind of powerhouse pushing it out. It's just like, this is cool. You know, that's sometimes we kind of stumble upon those, and it's great. I mean, you see it in the comments mostly, you know, and then if it's independent comments and.
But even like the Gin Kama video, the Ford and everybody with Red Bull was pushing that shit out to me. But I watched it, and it's like, holy shit, is that cool?
For sure.
That was the comment underneath.
Yeah.
Just every 10th of a second was another comment. Holy shit, holy shit.
For sure.
I'm gonna try and translate holy shit and cool dude to.
When Red Bull does its best work, that's what you see. It's
But I
like
think
every 10th of a second, another comment comes in. Like,
But I think most of the people in
this.
this room can't really go out and produce that in action sports. I mean, it's just something they spend millions of dollars on, and you know, it's just a different level.
I get the same kind of sentiment. You know, you can look at some of my videos and it's like, whoa, that was cool, or that was boring.
Yeah. Well,
we're at the half an hour.
Big Brain on Robert Scoble here stole my line, which was sentiment. If I was going to try and wrap up what these folks are saying up here, and what is the measurement? The measurement is sentiment. And sentiment is measured a handful of ways. Some of them are shares, because that means if you're willing to push it out to your network, you actually give a shit. And there's a little cultural currency going on, like, oh yeah, I shared this to my peer group. And that goes around and comes around, sort of like money. And then like comments. I think comments are a great indicator of what it is that you've done, and reading those as opposed to just looking at the number on the dial is really important. Great question, though. Another question. This is your time to shine, folks.
You guys all talked a lot about community, using that word. Can you talk a little bit about how you use the distribution that you're talking about to go to the next level and actually creating that community?
That is at 1:30, my friend.
All right.
It's a, there's an entire panel of which I'm plugging myself here because I'll be sitting not in the big red chair but over there. But there's a really intelligent group of folks outside of me who can address how to build an audience. Robert is going to be on that panel as well as a handful of other super smart folks. So I want to try and keep this on distribution. I think the point is an awesome one though, because if you're going to distribute, you got to, you know, I sent it to my mom and it wasn't very effective, for example.
But a tease for that panel. It's a different skill to take a community from 0 to, let's say, 10,000 than it is to take a community that already is 10,000 and get it to 100,000. And they're different tactics, different kinds of things that you can do to help feed and grow that community.
That was a good tease. We'll see you at 1:30. But keep going. Questions right here. This is important. On distribution for these smart guys. Yes, please.
Yeah. How does a brand like Red Bull or Orchard approach kind of like the cross-device consumption strategy? So with tablets and mobile and content being distributed so many different ways, how are you making sure that your message is being broadcasted across all these different devices without...
So it's a platform question.
Platform consumer facing.
Well, you have no choice. You have to. So I look at just TRT, total running time, that I window out onto different devices, because you're going to consume media different ways on different devices. Everybody knows that. It's common sense. And then you just monitor it a lot. You'll see that people are starting to consume more and more. Used to be said they're going to watch content on the biggest screen available. Well, where's that biggest screen going to be? It's going to be in your living room. Let's say it's a 50-inch plasma. But then what's your second screen world going to look like? So I think the big buzz you're going to hear now going forward is second screen, second screen, second screen. Well, what does that really mean? How do you ingest content there? What else do you provide to it? But right now, where we sit, make sure it's a cross-platform, but make sure it's digestible, whatever platform it's on. You'll see that length of view or engagement is coming up on the other screens, but it's not still quite there yet. So just make sure you give it to them digestible and let them know that they can find it someplace else when they're ready, and you'll be ready for them. We're in a VOD mindset now. Appointment television is challenging unless it's a live event. So I want to watch what I want, when I want, and what platform I want to watch it on. And if that's what the consumers say. So if you provide it to them on all those platforms and then drive them to the biggest screen and say, hey, I've teased you here at work for your lunchtime television, which is eating lunch in front of your computer, but later on this evening I'm VOD and I can be on your biggest screen and you can find me on Netflix or wherever. So let them know where to find it, and you're always going to be there whenever they're ready. And that's how you multiply multi-screen.
Great point. I'm gonna dovetail and I'm gonna try and challenge something that's just said, which is, so you talked about different platforms, different screens, and VOD. What about live? Does anybody want to watch the Super Bowl the day after? Hell no, right? Everyone wants to watch it live. So where does live fit in? This is of interest to me because live, I've got a couple of live platforms, and I'd love to hear from someone up here where live is in this ecosystem of distribution, because now we've got Ustream, we've got Google Hangouts, we've got there's probably 10 others that are not the tip of my tongue, but where is it in your mind share?
We've done some live stuff with brands, and it's definitely challenging. We were talking earlier about engagement, and with the live events we've done, you don't get. There's definitely not the scale of millions of views. Like, that's not on the table, but the engagement is through the roof because you get the core advocates of whatever it is you're working on, and that's really cool to see. I mean, we've done stuff where it's like we'll designate a hashtag for whatever this live event is, and with just a pretty small live event, you can get a Twitter trending topic, and that's insane because these people are so diehard and they're so engaged. And it's cool. I think it's something that everybody's trying to figure out. But the engagement is really...
Yeah, live is hard. And when you were talking about engagement, that's what I was like, if people are going to disrupt their day because they can only see it at a certain time, you're going to have a really important group of people watching. So don't forget that.
It's huge in surf. I mean, I think all the surf events, like our office, when the Fiji event's going on, it's like everyone's pretending to work, and they just have a screen with all day.
Yeah, I do have a feeling that next year at meeting 9, assuming Derek can pull this shit together again, that we will have a conversation about live as another component of distribution that's not going to dominate the panel like it didn't today, but it will in the future. You guys agree, disagree?
Agree. I mean, I think as you get web streams become, we had a project called Where the Trail Ends, and we debuted it last week in Vegas, and we did a live stream on it. I've got a guy on my team named Ben Bryan who knows this stuff really. He's sometimes way smarter than I am about some of this, and he goes in. We live streamed it, and it did really. I mean, I couldn't believe the numbers. I'm like, you can't be kidding me. Somebody sat and watched this on a live stream, and they do. And so I'm a complete believer. So I think, again, another year or so, when the streaming and over the top and all of those things start to really hone together, you'll see that live stream can be something. And then you monetize it through, AVOD on that, and I think it's strong.
It is. There's the two-component thing. If you get to give a gift of something really powerful to the people who are watching live, then they get that live experience. They can interact via Twitter with your live stream. That's added value. The folks that catch it later, they still get it. They miss that extra something, and they realize through watching it that they missed the je ne sais quoi. They mixed that frosting. I'll stop with the French. No. All right, more questions from the audience. Yes, sir, Mr. Fayfield.
Just jumping off on that, I'd be curious, and this is sort of a question for everybody, but we come from as media creators, let's say. We were all siloed out. Years ago, we made print products, or we made film, and that's obviously, we've become much more platform agnostic. We talked about that. Where do you think we're going? Right now, media companies, whether you're creating and or trying to figure out distribution sides, we're scrambling to figure it all out. Where do we think we're going to be in terms of the platforms, and what's next? Is live next? Is there something else, or is there going to be a simplification of what's out there now?
I think that it's settling in a little bit right now in the digital VOD and download to own right now. We're going to see this trend for a little while because you have giant companies now controlling you have Apple, iTunes, Xbox, Microsoft, Amazon, Vudu, which Walmart owns Vudu, Google Play. You have these giant companies spending tremendous resources through devices in some respects with Kindle Fire, iPads, Android devices. So you're going to consume the product on those devices, and we're going to see that kind of trend, I think, for a ways here. Like it's the next frontier. We had VHS, DVD, Blu-ray kind of, and digital. So those companies are it's all about getting the device in your hand or your pocket and consuming on their platform. It's agnostic, so they don't really care, and it's basically a race to who has the most credit cards on file, because when you have the consumption through convenience of like, there it is, boom, I'm watching it, and they already have your credit card and you get an email with your receipt, like that's the goal. And you have big user bases of Xbox with like 90 million Xbox devices hooked up to a credit card, and iTunes with 120 million or something like that. And so it's kind of a race right now for those companies to, woo the user into using their service. And so I think we're just going to see that play out for a long time, because it's all evolving really quickly with new tablets and new phones and TVs, web-enabled TVs.
I think that not to cut you off, but I feel like there's if anyone tells you they got it figured out, they're full of shit. Right. Okay? Because it's.
I got it figured out, Jason.
You fill in the rest. But generally speaking, and I think we talked about this a little bit on our call, generally speaking, that there are these things. I think you're really, really accurate to say that we're settling in a little bit, and there's sort of this sort of a teardrop effect where the live event, whether in person, right? When you go to a show, a music show, you see it. That's like the highest form of consuming or being participant, and then seeing it live, and then seeing it in VOD, and then seeing it VOD, and then seeing it on your iPad. And we're like, you listen to your favorite album 100 times. You went to the concert, then you saw the recording of it live, and then you put it on your iPad and you watch that video, and then you play it on your song when you're running, and so you're consuming a lot of the same content in multiple different sort of patterns and paths.
And just do less and make it good. Don't we all get carried away? Well, I got to make something really cool and rad because I want to go do it. It's fun. I want to be out there shooting. Do less. Do it as good as you possibly can, and window the hell out of it, and you'll be successful in doing it. Don't. everybody says, well, you know, the consumer, they have a tolerance for a certain quality of stuff. I don't believe that. I think as much as there's a tolerance for that or an acceptability for that, when you provide something, when we did Art of Flight, I was amazed at Art of Flight. I mean, it's really good. And, you know, and I went, you know, I like to, you always want a little more storyline, because if you take it out to the masses, you got to be able to, my mom didn't quite get Art of Flight. She wanted a little more storyline. So you got to look at who your audience is, but that was a really good property. So do less, spend your money, and really focus on one thing, because you can have a long life with one property. You don't need 10 things out there cluttering the marketplace. Do one and be known for really good, or access. You know, like Kurt Morgan and Travis Rice have a relationship. There's access there. You know, Kurt could get Travis to do things, and so that's a strong relationship that worked, and they made a really good property. So do less and do it good.
I think that's great advice. We're inside of 5 minutes, so I'd like to get to a few more folks. Yes, sir.
So my question is about produced, very highly produced,
Okay.
not very highly produced
Sure.
content. So I'm a meteorologist. Most of what I do revolves around snow right now, with open snow. So what do you guys think in terms of, hey, it takes me, you know, a week or a month or something like that to produce something, versus what can I get out right now? So like Chase, on your shoot
Sure.
last year, all that content is now going out now.
Yes.
But you pushed it all into your blog.
Sure. I'd love to answer that specifically, which is the way we think about content, or the way I think about it in the companies and the properties that I'm a part of. It's either really, really good, or it's really, really simple and fast. And the stuff that's dangerous is all this shit in the middle. You don't want to be here. You want to have Art of Flight, or you want to have a webcam like, hey, I'm here in my hotel room, we just got back from shooting, and you find out that there's 20 people want to talk to you on Google+, and then that gets recorded out, and YouTube Live gets to see it. And it's the medium sort of thing that is dangerous.
Is there a length of, I mean, what length do you?
I think of it almost entirely in terms of production value. It either is rough and tumble on purpose, or yeah, and that's like
long videos, and if I'm showing you something mind-blowing and it's a shitty production quality, you'll watch it and you'll be happy.
right.
And if I have something that's boring, and I can make it look so sweet, and it's still boring.
It's true, yeah, but generally that's like those tweets and all those little pictures and you know, those twit pics and little 10-second videos. That's that stuff that's at this end of the spectrum. I feel like. Anyone else want to attack
question
that?
back there.
Yeah.
Yes. So the business model that got us all in this room today, you know, started with the core action sports film companies such as PGR and whatnot. As you know, content creation and consumer consumption has kind of advanced over the past decade. Some of these smaller sport brands that all of us are really drafting off of in this world we've kind of forced their hand to spending more money on the content creation to support their end products. So I'd love to hear you guys just speak a little bit to the return on investment that business model specifically is having to put in, because, you know, if their budget's, you know, $1 million to make a film, you're not going to get the additional 0.5 to go make the web content that they need to market that film at the end of the day. So I'd love to hear just your personal POV on return on investment around the web content being pushed out as purely marketing.
What's your POV on the ROI?
I know it's different from each one of you, that's why I want to ask. On the creative world side, we got guys like they're, you know, helping build brands like Tim Humphries, whereas Red Bull is a lot different story, obviously. So.
Take it.
Yeah, I mean, I heard you say like spending $1 million on production and then not having another $500,000 to create web content. I think you can kind of take your, you know, like whatever the big, highly produced piece is, and do stuff. I mean, like what you do, you know, behind the scenes, like this fast, down and dirty stuff that provides kind of like that exclusive, like insider feel. And then that kind of like makes the whole process much more efficient. And that's one thing that's great about, you know, online in general. So I don't think you need to do the whole, you know, they're two separate things. You can draft off of whatever your big production is and just, you know, take outtakes, little bits and pieces, and leverage those for the marketing.
And they can still be nice.
Now, right, it's like as these, you know, whether it's behind the lines drops, right, 40,000 views, it's like how is that return on investment? How can you sell that on top of the product? And what's the best way to kind of package that?
If I'm understanding you right, Riley, I mean, I think one of the things I feel is a mistake that some of the brands are doing with their free content that's made, webisode content that's made to go viral, and they're wanting the returns is, they're paying for big shoots and boat trips and things like that, and it's just residing on their site or on YouTube or something like that. When for a little bit more amount of money, it can be packaged into a feature with the A roll, be in HD, watch it on your TV, and live for a long time generating, as Greg said, royalties for a while generating, because no one ever says like, oh, remember that webisode from 3 years ago that Standard did? Like, nothing, it's like, but they might go back and go, remember the movie?
That was a cut.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. But you remember the movie last year? And they'll go find that and buy that and consume that.
Right.
And that keeps the snowball going.
The brands that have hired me to do integrated campaigns where I'm shooting, filming, and talking about at the same time, there's actually the most value in the sawdust, that is a mind trip right there, right? That's flipping the model. And I think these guys would probably agree that that there's a whole pile of money waiting on this sawdust that if you approached it thoughtfully with the end in mind, you might be able to do something.
Yeah, just don't be scared of a monetizable player. I believe that people will have more value in content if there's a pre or post roll to it. So don't think, oh, I'm selling out if I have a pre-roll against my content. No, put the pre-roll there, collect your 25 cents of pre-roll or whatever it may be against the CPM, and generate the money. I mean, people are going to sit there through a pre-roll of 15 seconds to watch your content if they believe in it. So make the content feel like it's a more premium experience and pull some money from that sawdust. So don't be scared of a monetizable player at all.
These guys are going to be out in the courtyard having lunch. We're going to end this panel. I have to pee. Round of applause for these guys. Thank you. Thank you, guys.